going on? It's Bob here. What I'm going to be doing today is essentially repainting, kind of refurbishing the brake calipers, which have come off of my Suzuki Bandit 600. It's a 1998 model, so God knows when these were last painted. This is the rear here, which looks like a Tokiko caliper. That's the rear brake, and then there's two front calipers. I removed these off of my bike earlier. I'll show you how to put them back on. Obviously, it's just a reverse process of taking them off, essentially. But what I'm looking at doing, the colour scheme of my Bandit, which I've been working on for some time throughout this year, has been black and yellow, because it's in Batman liveries. So what I'm looking at doing here, it's going to look really cool. I'm going to paint the whole caliper yellow, and I'm going to get some black sort of decals to go on the outside here. Now today all I'm going to be doing is some priming, letting that cure off, obviously prepping, priming, and painting the initial sort of yellow caliper paint, and that's going to be using some brush on paint by Autotech. Got this from my local sort of motor parts store. It was $9.99 for the tub, and it gives a really nice finish apparently. We're going to test that and give it a go. Obviously, it is a brake caliper paint, so you know, you can use VHT paints as well, because obviously it's got to go to a really high temperature, given the fact that obviously the brakes are working under extreme heat. So yeah, we're going to do that, and let's get started. So first things first, what we're really going to want to do is make sure that we get some gloves. Now these ones are latex gloves, got them from a local machine mart, extremely thick sort of latex gloves. Equally, you could use some of these. Unfortunately, I use these quite a lot for cleaning cars, etc. They're fabric on the back and sort of this plasticky material on the front. They're very good, but they are not as good as these latex ones. Obviously, just like a lot of bits in this video I'll go on to describe later on, it's harder to get things. This happens as well. Get things because of the current pandemic, what with COVID-19. So things like these latex gloves are actually a lot more expensive than what they were just a few months ago. So let's get those latex gloves on and start the first bit, which is preparation. So we're going to start off with the rear caliper, and this is the one that's actually sort of covered up the most. So this is a really nice test part, you know, it's the part that we can sort of test out everything on first, because like I say, it's covered up the most by the swing arm, etc. And so it won't look too, if it is poor quality, it won't look too bad. So this is what we're going to test the bits on first. Now we can prep this in several ways. Obviously the first thing we're going to want to do really is to give it a clean off. Now normally we'd use isopropyl alcohol, or what's known as rubbing alcohol, but in this case what we're going to start off with is some stuff which anyone who's got a girl might have lying around the house. Now that's some nail polish remover. Now you've got to make sure that this contains in the ingredients acetone. Now acetone works similar to a rubbing alcohol, or so I'm told, and this was 99p in Superdrug. Equally, and this was on the advice of my missus, was this artificial nail remover, which also contains acetone. This was triple the price, it was $2.99. However, I'm told that this stuff is a lot stronger. So we'll start off with the normal nail polish remover, and then we'll move on to this artificial nail remover as and when we need to sort of clean those bits up. So let's have a look at that. So this is the Tokiko. So this here is the Tokiko rear caliper, as you can see. Although it does look quite good, i.e. it's not faded much, it's you know, not got a lot of paint scored or scratched away. You can see that there is some scrapings, you know, there is some damages along here, and this raised lettering, this raised Tokiko lettering, I'm not actually that keen on, if I'm being perfectly honest. What I'm going to look at doing, pardon me, instead is getting this down to the bare metal. and putting on some decals of my own, some ideas of my own. I don't have those decals yet, hence why the final parts, which is putting the brakes back on, the lacquering, and also the adding of the decals will be done at a later video. This is one of the reasons why you wear gloves as well, is the brake fluid and brake dust that's in here is quite harmful, especially to the skin, and also to any paintwork. So you must make sure when you remove this, I mean, it's inevitable, it goes everywhere, especially when you're removing all the banjo bolts to actually get one of these calipers off in the first place. But you've got to make sure that you try and wipe that off of any paintwork as soon as possible. It's just going to blister up otherwise. And for cleaning, and I like to use normal sort of household products, I've got some cosmetic pads and also some cotton buds to get to those hard to reach areas. We're going to get one of these. We're going to use a little test area first off. Get some of this. Oh, very strong, very strong. Shouldn't probably smell it, but I can't help myself. So I'm just going to rub down with this nail polish stuff. And it's just mostly to get rid of any dirt, you know, so we're prepping it. And as you can see, straight away, this stuff's coming off. You know, it's horrible, really. You know, when it's super dirty, get yourself a nice clean pad and repeat the process, really. I know it's going to take a little while, but it's all in the preparation. And it does make a huge difference for when you come to actually painting this and making sure it's smooth and stuff. So the preparation is extremely important. Okay. Now, for the hard to reach areas, that's when you use the cotton wool. So these cotton wool buds, which I've just snapped the box to get into. Heavy-handed. It's like this, yeah? You just dip it in. And you're getting all the little nooks and crannies, because obviously in these, you can see there's like grooves. There's like grooves where all of this stuff builds up, yeah? And you can see these haven't been cleaned in a long time, if ever, because look at that. There's a clean one, and that's what is coming out. So you know that is just inside one of these grooves. So cleaning this off is extremely important. What's the point in going out there, spending money on paint, and taking your time, taking everything apart, to end up with a terrible job at the end? The next stage of preparation going to be the prep stage with sanding. Now, there's lots of bits you can do. You can sand with wire brushes, you can sand with sandpaper. You know, I personally have a rotary tool. It's my first time using it. I've never had to use it before. I bought it for doing these calipers. So just to give you a heads up, I bought these from eBay, a wire brush set. It comes with some nylon brushes, brass brushes and steel brushes, and I believe that was around £3 to £4. Some sandpaper here, which I'm going to use as well. But like I say, this rotary tool, which is essentially a cheap version of a Dremel, right here. It comes with loads of different attachments, as you can see, loads of different attachments for sanding, and loads of different bits there. This is what I'm going to be using today, because I want to give it a go and sort of see where I can get it to. Like I say, I'm really going to try and bring this raised lettering down to bare. So on with the different tools we're going to use. Got to make sure that you wear a mask and you're in a well ventilated area to get this done. Brake dust and all the paint and bits like that that's going to come off is going to be particularly nasty. Going to remove this plastic part here. There's a couple of bolts which are just in the back. I'm going to paint those separately anyway. I like to keep everything together, so I don't tend to leave bolts out. I tend to keep them in, like I've done here, so that I don't lose them or lose where they're meant to go. The retainer clip, this is where the pads would go, and we're going to use a little screwdriver, almost as a punch, to essentially get these out. There we go. That's one pin. There's 2 pins. Now, you can't actually split these down entirely. What I've got is some brake and clutch cleaner. It just cleans all this brake dust away. There is a high amount of brake dust in there. Look, you only need to look at my gloves. So I'm going to start setting up my my Dremel tool and getting everything together. So we're going to give it a whirl, see what this is like, see if it's worth its money. And first thing I'm going to do is the top sort of face plate here. As you can see, just as a start, so that's a few minutes, just working on that front plate, and as you can see already, that's starting to come up shiny. That means the bare metal is starting to show. This tool that I've got here, this one, let me just take it out for you, is like a flat, almost sandpapery type. This one, which has a much sort of more coarse grit, going to do the job that little bit quicker. So let's now try this one instead. It's taken about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and look at that. So essentially, as you can see, the raised lettering entirely gone. There is absolutely no raised lettering left on that bit. Now this was going to be the hardest bit. On the other brake calipers, these are the front brake calipers, the little Nissin symbol is actually a lot smaller. This had Tokyo Japan written quite in large lettering over the entire thing. So pretty chuffed. Now we want the whole caliper to essentially be on that level, you know. It's nice, it's smooth, there's no ridges or marks. Any imperfections in the caliper you'll be able to essentially see and remove. Any spots like you see this, see how horrible this looks? That's going to look a lot shinier, and it's just going to pop, you know. And that's kind of what we want. That is what we want with the brake caliper. So let's fast forward it, and you'll be able to see what it looks like. So who knew it would be so fiddly? But this is the finished product. So highly recommend using the rotary tool, and made this job a lot easier. I cannot recommend it enough. I've got nothing to compare it to. That one was a cheap eBay buy. I think it was about 20 quid to buy that. I've never used an actual Dremel to be able to compare it to anything, but this is what it should look like afterwards. And the plan is to now just essentially mask and tape off all the bits that we don't want to get. As you can see, everything is now masked off. So the first coat on the top here using some etch primer is going to be nice and light, lots of light sprays. Not too bothered about the coverage, because what we want to do is get coverage over about 3 different layers. So this one's like a binding layer. So as you can see, what we're going to do is just come down and now we're going to leave that to sit. You see, at the moment, it's got a bit of a shiny appearance to it. It'll dry and matte, so it will go like a matte colour. And then what we're going to do, flip it over, do the other side, same thing. So yeah, essentially I've managed to do them all. You really need to leave yourself some time to do this. It took me a lot longer than what I thought, but you know, I mean, this is the last coat that's drying, as you can see.
that raised lettering, barely noticeable, still there, just slightly, barely noticeable.
I cannot recommend a Dremel enough. This one obviously isn't a Dremel, it's a cheap eBay special tool, Teamer. I do this with all my tools. I buy cheap tools, see how I get on with them, see what they're like, because some things are gimmicky and you really need to figure out what's gimmicky and what's not. So I buy cheap tools on eBay, and then if I like it, I will replace it with an expensive one when this one breaks.
There are so many little nooks and crannies that you have to get into to actually prep these properly. The back caliper really was not even as bad as the fronts, which are even worse, as you can see. So yeah, it's just to bear that in mind. You really need to leave yourself some time and make sure you've got time to be able to get this done properly. So the next part of the video will essentially be putting on the actual brake caliper paint. Well, these need a bit of time to cure anyway. I think, looking at the paint can, I think it's about 24 hours it needs to properly cure and set properly. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it at least 24 hours. I think that it's about 3 more days before I'm going to be able to get round to doing the paint anyway for the actual calipers. But at least all 3 calipers are done all at once, then I don't have to worry about it. That's the plan. Let's see how it goes.